A coup d'etat. It is a French word that means a stroke of state or blow of state. It happens when the military of a country unseats or tries to unseat an incumbent leadership. There have been 492 attempted or successful coups carried out around the globe since 1950. 220 of them have been in Africa, the most of any region. But the continent has experienced a decline in the number of coups carried out within the past decade, with only 7 countries experiencing coups since 2020, most of them being from the Sahel region. When a coup happens in a country, the nation is normally characterized by bad governance, economic hardship, and political instability, these being the main ingredients of a coup. And for some African countries, they fit the category. Let's have a look at the major coups that have happened in Africa. Let us start with the island country of Madagascar. It is in January of 2009, and there is this recently elected charismatic mayor of Antananarivo, Andre Rajoelina, who becomes a harsh critic of the government of President Marc Ravalomanana. Andre accuses Marc of being corrupt and trying to be a dictator. He then goes on to call for protests around the country demanding the president to resign. Protests end up becoming violent for a whole month, and the president orders the army to crush the protesters. And to the surprise of many, the army mutinies, sidelines with Andre, the president resigns and flees the country.
Everything looked presidential and felt presidential. The screaming supporters, the heavily armed military escort, but nothing here is as it seems. Andre Rajoelina stepped out of his armored car to walk the last few meters to the presidential palace. But here the former mayor of Antananarivo was not yet the president. In carefully chosen words, he told Al Jazeera he's here to take power and install a transitional government.
Extraordinary scenes here in the capital city, literally thousands of supporters waving their support for the opposition leader. They all say they're happy that he says he's in power, they want him to lead him, and they're waiting to see what kind of solutions he will have for them in the coming days.
Watch out to cross over to Zimbabwe. It is in 2017. President Mugabe has been ruling the country since 1987, and now he is old and falling ill, making him unable to govern the country, which he and his wife have completely bankrupted it. A power struggle ensues within the ruling parties and UPF between Vice President Emmerson Mnangagwa and Mugabe's wife, Grace, on who will succeed him. The army backs Mnangagwa, forcing Mugabe to resign under pressure after impeachment proceedings are initiated. The citizens celebrate with the army in the streets of Harare, ending Mugabe's 30 years rule.
We have joined people calling for Mugabe to step down. On Wednesday, the leader of Zimbabwe's War Veterans Association, he threatened to remove the president from power if he didn't step down. Thousands more are expected on the streets on Saturday to demonstrate against the 93-year-old president's 37-year rule.
Let us move up to the Congo. It is in 1960, during the height of the Cold War. The Congolese elect a new prime minister, this guy, Patrice Lumumba. But over in Washington, the communist alarm bells instantly start sounding off. Because we're in the middle of the Cold War, and Congo is a place full of tons of natural resources, including loads of uranium, the main ingredient for nuclear bombs. And officials in Washington can't trace Congo falling into the influence of the Soviet Union. They start focusing on this prime minister. The CIA director called him, quote, an urgent and prime objective that should, quote, be a high priority of a covert action. The CIA starts allying with Lumumba's political enemies and Congo's former colonizer Belgium. They bribe politicians, they fund protests and labor movements, and they circulate propaganda. And when the moment is right, all these bribed politicians do what the CIA asks them to. They will go on to remove Lumumba from power. And the CIA is right there giving money and intelligence and advice to the new government. We are now in West Africa, over to this country that has an American lookalike flag. It is the country of Liberia, where in the 1980s, a lot of native Liberians had grown tired of being marginalized by the ruling elite of Americo-Liberians, whom were descendants of African Americans and a minority of Afro-Caribbeans who emigrated to Liberia with assistance from the American Colonization Society that helped them escape slavery in the United States. The Americo-Liberians did not relate well with the native Liberians, primarily due to racism, the difference of the color of their skins. Native Liberians were impoverished while the small elite of Americo-Liberians shared the country's wealth among themselves. This wealth disparity instigated the Liberian military to stage a bloody coup in April of 1980. The Liberian President William Tolbert, together with 13 of his ministers, were executed by a firing squad. The coup was led by a native Liberian military officer, Samuel Doe, who then became the first native Liberian president. Among the people who survived the purge was Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who later came to be president in 2006. And this coup was an example of how ethnic conflict has contributed in African governments to be overturned. When one side feels left out, discriminated upon, and marginalized, people take up arms and fight back, and it is usually savage. Another scenario of bad ethnicity playing out is over here in East Africa, in the countries of Rwanda and Burundi, specifically in Rwanda, where in 1994, a Hutu-led government was overthrown by a Tutsi revolutionary group after the Hutu government abetted the genocide of an estimated 1 million people, majority being the Tutsis, followed by the Twa and moderate Hutus. The Rwandan genocide is the largest mass murder of people in the African continent. Guy, that is very disturbing. Let us cross over here to Gabon. A coup recently happened in 2023 when the Gabonese military ousted Ali Bongo after he claims to have won the August general election. Bongo had been ruling Gabon since 2009 after succeeding power from his Mzee, Omar Bongo, who had ruled the country for 42 years. The coup brought an end to the 56-year rule of the Bongo dynasty. This coup was a result of ordinary Gabonese yearning for a regime change.
It's the liberation of an entire country, something I've dreamed about. We're proud and very happy that the army has decided to stand up for justice.
And some of the coups that have happened in Africa has been the result of strongman dictators' refusal to leave power. Come happened in Uganda in 1979 when dictator Idi Amin was overthrown by Ugandan exiles aided by Tanzanian forces, ending Idi Amin's draconian 8 years rule in Uganda. Huyu mjamaa alikuwa na karanga his enemies. Anyway.
Why do you ask me about Hitler? The Hitler's problem is now past tense. Now we are looking forward for the future generations and a future plan. We are no longer going back to Hitler's.
Over to Sudan, another dictator, huyu mzee Omar al-Bashir, who just like Idi Amin, took power through a coup. This happened in 1989 and he went on to rule Sudan with an iron fist for 30 years, till he was overthrown by his army in 2019. His overthrow started as peaceful protest by ordinary Sudanese demanding him to resign. At first, the RSF and the Sudanese army sidelined with Omar al-Bashir and crushed the protesters. But later on, wakasoma ground, then wakageuzia Omar al-Bashir and overthrew him. But baadaye a power struggle ensued between the RSF and the Sudanese army, plunging Sudan into an ongoing war zone.
A fierce battle across Sudan. The army and the powerful paramilitary group, the Rapid Support Forces, have been in conflict for more than a year. General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, who leads the army, and General Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, known as Hamati, in charge of the RSF, were once allies. But they fell out over how and when to integrate the RSF into the army. It led to armed conflict in the capital, Khartoum, which has spread to several provinces.
Wacha tupande over here in Northern Africa. It is in 2011, during a wave of protests spreading throughout this region, trying to take down all these strongman dictators. One of which was this guy, Lieutenant Colonel Muammar Mohammed Abu Minyal al-Gaddafi. And there is worry that he's gonna potentially massacre all of these pro-democracy protesters. So the US, which hates Gaddafi, feels like it must get involved to save these protesters. The They rally their NATO allies to help them. But at some point the mission switches to total regime change. The target becomes Gaddafi, and now NATO drones are firing missiles at his convoy. And he eventually gets captured and gets killed on the spot.
But in what appeared to be a short while later, was seen again apparently lifeless.
Wow. Unconfirmed. Yeah. No. Unconfirmed reports about Gaddafi being captured. Unconfirmed. Yeah. We've had too many. We've had a bunch of those before. We've had, have had him captured a couple of times.
Lastly, let us finish with the Sahel region, particularly with these former French colonies, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, with all the three experiencing recent coups since 2021. And the motive behind the recent coups that have happened in these three countries is the government's inability to deal with Islamic insurgents that have been in this region since 2021. The battle-hardened Islamic militants who fought for Gaddafi in Libya and other Islamic militants in Algeria immigrated to northern Mali after an ethnic group in northern Mali called the Tuareg started a conflict with the Malian government demanding autonomy because of being marginalized. The insurgency later spread on to the neighboring countries. France used to help this government fight the insurgents by deploying its troops on the ground. But since the coups, the three countries cut their ties with France, accusing them of making the situation worse, and turned to their new ally, Russiske Federație, Russia. The private military company called the Wagner is currently in Mali helping to fight the militants. In exchange, the Wagner is able to exploit the natural resources in the country. The Sahel region is very rich in gold, diamonds, and uranium. But despite all of this wealth, the Sahel region remains to be the most impoverished places in the world. Okay, there are a lot of coups that have happened in Africa that I cannot be able to cover all of them. Only few countries have never witnessed a coup, and also few having unsuccessful ones. Kenya being one of them. I made a video about it, you can check it out later. But every time a coup happens in a country, instability roams around, because there are different power players trying to fill the vacuum. It is only the wise leaders that make the right decisions and turn their countries towards prosperity. But when everyone is selfish and greedy for power, citizens pay the ultimate price.